I think maybe if I knew how to draw, the magic might have gone away. But I don't know how to draw, and the magic is just as big a magic, I think maybe even bigger to me now than it was when I was a kid.
Why should I worry? Tell me, why should I care? Say I may not have a dime, oh, but I got three sound watching. Why should I worry? Why should I care? It's just two population, and I got three sound watching. Everything goes, everything fits. They love me at the shelter, they adore me at the rim.
I've been watching Walt Disney films my whole life. So I guess we all have. And they hold a very special feeling for me. Many of these characters seem like old friends. And seeing them again after all these years brings back many memories. Like the moment Bambi sprawls onto the ice. When Snow White meets the Seven Dwarfs for the first time.
Why, dear little men!
When Dumbo is comforted by his mother, who is locked in a cage. What is it that makes these characters seem so alive? After all, they're just simple drawings on paper, but they look as though they're made of flesh and blood. That's the secret of great animation. And frankly, I've always wondered how they do it. Well, for the next 30 minutes, we're going to go behind the scenes at the Disney studio and see exactly how they create an animated feature from start to finish. After all, nobody does it better. Moments like these seem incredibly real. That's a tribute to the animator who draws them. In fact, you might say the animator is giving a performance through his drawings.
If you're going to be animating a character and you approach it from a very removed way, like I'm going to draw an angry face, all you would get is the audience looking at an angry drawing. Oh, that's somebody who looks angry. Or if the animator really gets into the character and feels that anger, and it's in the movement, it's his whole body, it's his shoulders hunch up and his head is moving around, and then they get caught up, and suddenly that's not a drawing anymore. Boy, that guy, he's really upset. In animation, there's a barrier for an animator, and it's that blank sheet of paper. And if you stay on the real side and draw it, your animation will always remain somewhat elusive. The audience will never quite get it. But if you can dive into that, past that paper, so that's a real world you're drawing, then it just comes to life and it's magic.
The master magician was Walt Disney himself. Walt didn't invent animated cartoons, but you might say he reinvented them. From his earliest days, he was determined to stretch the boundaries of animation, and he did. First with the addition of sound, then by adding color. And then Walt tackled the biggest challenge of all, an animated motion picture.
There must be something your little heart desires. Perhaps there's someone you love. Come on!
He knew that the only way people would accept an animated feature was if they cared about the characters and got hooked by the story. And that was Disney's ace in the hole, because when it came to telling stories, he was the best.
He came over to our house when I was a little kid, and I was homesick with something or other in bed. And I was maybe 8 or 9 or something, and he came upstairs. They came over to have dinner with my folks. He came upstairs to say hi, and he was in one of those moods, and he said, listen, we're working on a new picture, let me tell you the story. And it was Pinocchio, and I would guess he spent a half an hour sitting on the edge of the bed telling me Pinocchio from start to finish, and he was a hypnotist as a storyteller.
Look! Now he ate
He knew that thing, scene by scene, gag by gag, dialogue, everything. He acted all the parts, described the scenes, did all the characters. He knew that movie from beginning to end, and what was happening was that the artists were listening to him as the script.
And this was Walt Disney's way of putting his story down on paper. It's called a storyboard. And it was invented at the Disney studio back in the 1930s to help the writers and artists visualize what they were doing. The storyboard is used to break down every shot of every scene in a movie. In essence, it's a visual script, just right for a visual medium like animation. But of course, ideas can change even after you've planned them out on the storyboard. It happened to Walt Disney on his very first animated feature.
While this animation was still in the preliminary or pencil phase, we found that the overall picture was too long. Something had to be left out, and this was it. You see, even though we liked the sequence, it was not essential to the telling of the story. So when you look at this sequence, it won't look like the picture as you remember seeing it in the theater. Instead, you will see the animator's original pencil drawings. These were photographed over simple outline sketches of the background and will look like this.
Imagine throwing out a wonderful sequence like this. It must have been a tough decision, but that kind of trial and error is still the rule for making an animated feature.
Say half of the work that I do in a picture is never seen in the picture. At least half, sometimes more. In every film we start with, we're going to storyboard it out at the beginning, and it's not going to change until the end, and we're going to do it just the way it is. And then some guy comes up with an idea that, it's like, well, wouldn't it be neat if Rannigan was really a big guy, you know, and he was very delicate in his mannerisms, and he surrounded himself with all this wealthy type stuff, and yet he's a sewer rat inside, and it just develops because you never know what an animator is going to bring when you're writing the script. You know, that's the hidden element.
Planning a cartoon feature involves a lot of trial and error. Drawings, discussions, experiments on paper to decide what will make the movie work. Someone has to organize this effort and act as a leader. That man is the director.
The hardest phase is actually the story, because you go in there not knowing what you're doing. You don't know what the characters are. First of all, you start with your storyboard and try to visualize it in pictures. And at the same time, you're trying to create the characters, what the characters look like, the size, the place that they're in. And then I start trying to think of an actor.
What would a cartoon be without voices? And the Disney cartoons have featured some of the most memorable voices in movie history, like Clarence Ducky Nash, who was Donald Duck's alter ego for 50 years, and Walt Disney himself, who provided the voice for Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse! You know, Mickey Mouse? I hope you've heard of me.
For these animated features, like Oliver and Company, Disney recruits the best person for the part. That sometimes means performers who have never worked in this medium before.
That's it, Frankie, man. You insulted my pride. This means death. Ah, Frankie.
It's funny how animation works, because you would think that they would animate first and then put the voices in, but they do it just the opposite, which works out really good. They put the voices down first, and then the animator gets an idea, can really twist that thing to look like the voice.
No kidding, man.
Hey, Tito, you're pushing it, man.
Hey, Tito, look. Yeah! Oh, boy! Don't pile.
All right, knock it off. Hello? What's the matter with you guys?
Once the dialogue is recorded, the work of putting faces with voices begins. Now, I always wondered how they got the lips to move just right when they animate a character talking. Here's the answer. The animator has a guide called an exposure sheet that breaks down every word the character says. Now, the line here is, "Madam, your coat." Here's the beginning of the word, madam. So the character's lips will start to open at frame 5 of film. Ma. See? Right on this frame right here. Then, as he says the final M, his mouth will finish the word and his lips will close again at frame 13. 8 frames in about 6 hours of work, just to say the word madam. Who said this isn't brain surgery? An animator has other guides to help him along as well. For instance, the studio will often shoot live-action footage that the animator can consult to see exactly how to draw a particular piece of movement. It would be hard to imagine this kind of dance without seeing it first. The animator uses this material the same way an artist uses a model to pose for a sketch or a portrait, and the results speak for themselves.
Now, let me see. There's the large carpet in the main hall. Clean it.
Sometimes all it takes is a little inspiration to create a memorable sequence. The character of Orville the albatross in The Rescuers was based on a wonderful piece of footage showing a real-life bird making a less than perfect landing.
Are you hurt, sir? Nope. One of my better landings, bud.
It's hard to make something move if you don't know how it moves in real life. So these artists study anatomy and bone structure before they apply it in cartoon terms. But sometimes they simply have to use their imagination. It's easy to see that making an animated feature is not a one-man job. It's not even a 100-man job, but sometimes there are so many facets, so many details, that it has to be a team effort.
I will think of the whole action, but I'll do the key major drawing. Say if a character is going to punch, I will do this drawing, and then an assistant, an in-betweener, will follow through and do this one and that one. And when you see it on the screen, it's all there.
Right. But the drawing process doesn't end with the animator and his assistant. There's another person, called the cleanup artist, who takes what the animator has done and gets it ready to be photographed.
The animator gives me these, which is a rough scene. I get it, and I flip through it and see what is happening in the scene here. He's showing some emotions. He's happy, he's sad. He's going to snap his fingers right at the end of the scene. And then settles in the last pose. I will select the drawings that I feel express some of these feelings. And let's take this last one. And I'll put the drawing down on these pegs. Take a fresh sheet of paper. I've done the drawing already, but this gives you the idea. Me going back and forth, making sure I'm keeping his drawing together, but I'm refining it, and I'm trying to get all the feeling and emotion into this drawing that I possibly can.
Ooh, wait! What if he comes and he's huge and mean?
Excuse me,
It's the FBI!
But how do so many different artists learn to draw a character like Fagin the exact same way?
We have a team of artists do a model sheet that shows Fagin in this case, and many attitudes, many sizes and poses, and even to help that further, we'll use a three-dimensional model like we have here, which the animators and cleanup people find very helpful in drawing very weird angles and tough poses, and oftentimes I'll look and see if I have a hard angle to draw, I will maneuver him and just get the proper angle and then start drawing from this model just to make sure I'm on.
Every movie needs someone to design the sets and pick the locations where the actors will perform. In a cartoon, it's the layout artist who designs the backdrops for the animated actors.
In drawing form, we are designing the set. We need to figure out, where the character's going to act, and really what the whole set looks like. Sometimes we'll do a drawing like this to give us
For instance, the trees in this sequence from Fantasia are majestic and round. They make you feel calm, reassured. For instance, the trees in this sequence from Fantasia are majestic and round. They make you feel calm, reassured. Compare that to the trees in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They're menacing, dangerous. The branches look like claws reaching out for Snow White. That's how the design of settings can affect the emotions of a scene. And speaking of emotions, it's not enough to have a great set and expressive characters for a scene like this. You need special effects. And in an animated cartoon, those effects are drawn by hand, frame by frame. In fact, the effects animator draws everything that moves in a scene that isn't a character. Things like fire, wind, snow.
Well, one of the greatest sequences, I think,
or a deluge
for an
of
effects
water.
animator,
The sorcerer's apprentice gets
to
in
look
over
at
his
and
head.
to study well, one of the greatest sequences, I think, for an effects animator to look at and to study various techniques of effects animation is A Night on Bald Mountain from Fantasia. Dropping to the floor. But in effects animation is sort of beyond belief. We'll watch that sequence over and over again with our jaws dropping to the floor. An effects animator's dream come true.
Of course, color is a vital part of all this. Not just the colors of the settings, but the colors of the characters themselves. The painting alone, a painstaking, handcrafted process, can take up to 9 months. After all, there are over 100,000 cells in an average film.
The black Xerox line on a nice clear cell, and then we give it some color. When it comes to us, it's make sure that every color is in the exact same black Xerox line on a nice clear cell, and then we give it some color. We make sure that every color is in the exact same place that it's supposed to be, and that when the character moves across the screen, he has his colors following right the way they should be, and give it some life and some depth.
Now, that may sound pretty simple, but how many different colors do you think it takes to paint this one character?
Fagin, this character here, has 26 colors, from his hat down to, I think, 3 colors on his shoes. You have hat, inside coat, ear color, his attire coat, button color, throat, tongue, teeth, inside mouth. He had pupils, white of eye, the gloves, inside coat, coat buttons, shirt. On Oliver, there was the paw pads and his tummy, inside mouth, muzzle, nose, inside ears. Sometimes he had an iris, and then the pupil, the white of eye, and the eye circle.
Lighting is another important part of telling a story. Now, in a live action film, all I have to do to change the light on my face is move, like this. But when the light changes in a cartoon, it's an optical illusion because there is no actual light being shown. To cast this shadow over Pluto's face, the painters have to darken every color. The colors have to change every time a character has to move from dark to light or back again. And sometimes they have to darken every single color in a complicated shot. Here's a good example. Dodger with the light on. Dodger with the light off. Coloring the backgrounds for every scene is not just a matter of making pretty pictures. Here, too, the colors have to serve a definite purpose. That's the challenge facing the background artists. When the layout department sends through a preliminary drawing, it looks like this. And when the background artists are finished, it looks like this.
With the layout that we get, it has like a drawing. Here, I'll show you. It has a drawing of all of the animation that's going on in this given scene. It tells us where the animation is going to be, all of the various characters that are there. See exactly where the action is going on here. We know that we need to focus where our light's going to be in a given area as opposed to our dark areas, so that when you're seeing it on film, you're focusing in on where those characters are going to be.
Here's the camera that photographs the finished cells and background. The camera person places one cell at a time under the protective glass. And when you hear the 2 clicks, you know the camera has photographed 2 frames of film. When you see this sequence on the screen, it will look like this. But how do they photograph a scene as ambitious as this one in the old mill? Look at that spider web in the foreground, the reflection in the water, the clouds in the distance, the ducks swimming by, and the cows parading on the horizon. It all looks so convincing. That's because it was photographed on this amazing machine called the multiplane camera. It stands 16 feet high, and the camera is perched right on top. It doesn't just photograph one cell in one background. It looks down through 3, 4, or 5 levels of drawings and cells, so there's a real feeling of depth and dimension. Just like there is in real life. The funny thing is, nothing much has changed at the Disney studio in 50 years of movie making. The same process that was used to make Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is still at work today on films like Oliver and Company. But there is one new development, so new in fact that it's liable to change the whole future of animation. The computer will help Disney animators create complicated sequences faster than ever before. Here's a dramatic example from The Great Mouse Detective that illustrates the collaboration between man and machine. The character of Basil was drawn by hand, while the workings of the clock were brought to life by a computer.
What we are using computers for is animating inanimate objects that were just tedious, time-consuming, uninteresting work that just had to be done. And now we got a computer that programs it in, and the computer programmer will sit at the thing and animate during the day. You program in the timing you want on a shot of what the car was going to do, and then at night you go home and it prints out. It has a little pen that prints out on paper, just like an artist. The computer has drawn this the traffic, the cars, the taxis, the Volkswagen Bug. We programmed each one of these vehicles in one by one, so the car will race by. It might take 10 people about 6 weeks to do what a computer can do in about 3 days.
But machines aren't doing all the work, even at this stage. The embellishments are still added by hand.
We go back into that animation and add reflections on the windshields, glows to the headlights to make them look more credible and less mechanical.
People tend to say, when you say the word computer, oh, the computer's going to animate the characters now. We don't think so, but the artist's ability to put character into the character is what he's really best at. The artist is the actor.
And it's this magical thing that happens inside your mind where what you imagine can actually come out your fingers, and you can put it into a pencil and draw it. And how you feel and how you act, you can make that move on paper. And people look at it, they don't see drawings, they see Bambi. And the people believe it. It's the greatest art form I think there is, animation.
When all is said and done, it doesn't matter if a film is animated with a pencil or a multi-million-dollar machine. What matters is the magic. How it gets there is the domain of these very special Disney magicians. For us in the audience, if they can make us believe in a wonderful new story, in a cast of brand new characters, they've done something very special indeed. Something no one else has ever done quite as well as the people at Walt Disney Studios. Thanks for watching. I'm John Lithgow.